to Word Funk. I am Leon Thomas. I am joined by Johnny Maloney and Austin Yorsky from another dimension. No. Wait, Austin?
He's gone.
Yes.
You're back?
Can you hear?
Yes.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. This is
Well,
exciting.
I can hear you.
How well, though? That's the question.
Not very.
You kind of sound like you're talking through a trumpet. No, more like a trombone. Something long and circuitous.
No, in my mind, you're like at the very bottom of a Pringles can, and you're like screaming to get out.
That's full Pringles can or an empty?
No, an empty Pringles can. It's kind of like that episode of The Twilight Zone where all the dolls are in the bucket, but you don't find that out to the end. Spoiler for an episode of Twilight Zone from 50 years ago.
Leon!
No, I'm sorry. It's a good one. Anyway, let's...
Wait, I need to sound better. Help me.
Is there anything I can do, like turning off things?
I don't think so. It's entirely on my end. The internet here just sucks.
Okay. Well, you'll be fine. Well, we can do this. We can do this. This is just an episode where Austin's in a Pringles can.
No, I feel bad.
Don't worry about it.
I never thought of it like that.
Why would you feel bad? Are you, is there something that you're doing to the internet? Did you, stick a cappuccino machine in the internet or something?
No, but I still feel bad, because I sound like shit.
Austin, do you want to tell us what's going on, or is this, totally none of our business?
It's not, I'm not where I usually am, and the internet here is not good.
Oh, okay.
Is it still in Florida?
Yeah. Yes. Where are you? I'll mail you more internets if you tell me where you are.
You guys.
We are going to talk about a few different things. The first thing is something Johnny's going to introduce right now.
Well, there's a bit of a furor over the internet, a Final Fantasy furor, if you will, Leon.
In my head, as soon as you said that, is this Final Fantasy have Hitler in it? Is that kind of furor, or is it a different furor?
I'm afraid not. Although if somebody did have a fantasy with Hitler in it, I think that would probably be a pretty Final Fantasy.
Yeah, I think that would be.
That would be done, no more.
Final Fantasy 16 is when they just give up and they say the villain is Hitler, and you have to fight him, and everyone's like, we're out of ideas. We have to just play Tales of Graces.
Yeah.
But tell us about the interesting thing about Final Fantasy 15.
The interesting thing about Final Fantasy 15 is that it looks like it's going to be probably the only good Final Fantasy to come out in years. But more specifically, apparently the entire game is, the party in the game is male exclusive. And gosh darn it, we're going to talk about it.
Why not? The headline I'm reading says that the director of the game says making it this way makes it more approachable.
Apparently.
Yeah. To whom? to half your audience?
Sausage Fest aficionados.
Oh, okay. Well, here's the thing. Final Fantasy 6 and 7 and 8 and 9 and 10, I played them, and they have a mixture of male and female cast members, and they all sold really well. And I believe I played 12 at some point, and also the same, and it sold very well. And 13, although it was not the one I played, apparently sold like crazy, and it had a female lead. So I don't understand what they're talking about. If this is a financial decision, it's a bad one. What are they talking about?
I don't think this is I don't think this is like how when Ubisoft was talking about female models in Assassin's Creed Unity, where they were like, it's too hard. I think that it's sorry, my phone is going off. I'm just going to leave it. I'm going to put it off to the side there. That's really embarrassing.
No, take the call on the air and then put it on speaker, and I'll talk to whoever you're talking to.
I can't. I've got headphones on right now, so it would be, I would be talking, you would be able to hear the call, and we could do a Cyrano de Bergerac thing, or if you're a classicist, a Roxanne thing.
Oh my God.
It's too late. They hung up.
Oh, okay.
So, anyways, I mean, I don't know. The quote, the whole quote reads, "Speaking honestly, an all-male party feels almost more approachable for players. Even the presence of one female in the group will change their behavior so that they'll act differently. So to give the most natural feeling, to make them feel sincere and honest, having them all the same gender made sense in that way."
Okay.
And that's from the director, Hajime Tabata.
You wonder if
I
it's
may be mispronouncing.
if it's a translation issue, because approachable doesn't sound like the same concept as the rest of that thought. Like he's saying that them all being men means they act more naturally around each other, like they're not trying to act to like impress her or to not embarrass themselves in front of her, but that's not approachable to players necessarily.
It also doesn't make a great deal of sense because when he's saying it like that, he's giving the impression that if a man is around a woman, then his primary thought is always, how can I impress this woman? Wherein it's like, do you not have female friends, director of this game? Do you not just have platonic female friends and you more or less act the same around them as you do your male friends? Is that like a cultural thing? Because when I lived in, I've lived in Asia, not in Japan, but in Korea. And when I lived in Korea, it was very strange because, like, when it was time for lunch, like, the male and female teachers, they all went to the cafeteria. But the women were, like, segregated into, like, their own tables, and the men, it was very strange. Like, they didn't want to hang out with each other. And if I'm totally wrong about this, and that male-female platonic friendships are super, super common in Asia, then everyone can just tell me to shut up in the comments. And I could totally be wrong, and this was just my experience. But when I sat with one of the female teachers, everyone looked at me like I had 3 heads. And they were like, why are you sitting with the women? It's like, what are you talking about? It's like, I know the women.
He breaks bread with the women folk.
I couldn't understand.
He is a traitor. Mark him.
If I'm completely wrong, and this was just something that's very specific to that school, and that in the rest of the Asian world, everything is more or less how it is where I live now, then I will retract that statement, and I apologize. But maybe there is a cultural thing here that we're just missing, or it's just a translation issue.
I mean, there might be a cultural element, but I've known people who can't be platonic friends with the opposite sex. I mean, it might just differ by person. Maybe the writer has some issues, like, personally, he's projecting them onto his assumed audience.
Okay. Well,
the thing about it is, too, is that, like, I mean, in all honesty, if you want to tell a story about masculinity and about male dynamic and things like that, there's really no problem with that in theory, right? The only problem that arises here is that it's been done. It's old hat. So to say that it's like, yeah, you know, like that's the kind of story I wanted. I wanted this male dynamic. I wanted a group of guys who could be more natural around each other, who had this particular kind of bond. You know, that's like, oh, that's really well and great. And if you do an excellent job of it, I'm sure everybody will say, oh, hey, you know, like the way that you handled the concept of masculinity and the way that men relate to each other and being with each other, you know, not even necessarily platonically. Maybe there's some male on male sexy time that happens. And people will be like, oh, hey, congratulations, good on you. But are you really that good a writer that you're just going to, like, blow open the gender wall and have guys go, whoa, I never thought about my dude friends that way before.
I mean, regardless of intentions, Final Fantasy 15 is going to be intensely homoerotic. That's just happening.
Oh, yeah.
Let's just make peace with that right now.
It's,
it's an all pretty dude road trip. It might as well be a JoJo's Bizarre Adventure arc.
You guys, mark my words, if there's a version of it that comes to PC and it's moddable, I will make it so that we 3 are main characters in Final Fantasy 15.
And perpetually shirtless.
And, like, always shirtless.
Okay.
Do you think we have the graphical capability to model Leon's rippling chest and arms? I don't know. if we have that.
I worry about the cutoff genes. That's like having the frayed edges of the cutoffs. That's gonna take some serious rendering chops.
I'll play devil's advocate here, just for a bit. There was a Final Fantasy game that was only with one gender before, that being Final Fantasy X-2, where all the characters are female. But that was a sequel game that wasn't part of like the main thrust of the series, and also it sucked. So
yeah, I was about to say that if you didn't, Final Fantasy X-2 is awful.
Yeah, and
some people like it. They're wrong. It's okay.
Did either of you guys play Final Fantasy X-2?
Yeah, I owned it and I played quite a bit of it until I could play no more.
I'm sorry, I've never met anybody that's played Final Fantasy X-2.
Well, I was back then.
I thought you guys were legends. I didn't think you existed.
Well, back then I was like a Final Fantasy completionist, I guess you could say. I loved 6, 7, not 8, 9, and even to a lesser extent 10, quite a bit. So I'm like, okay, well, I'm definitely going to play 10-2 now because that's a thing.
This is revelatory. I feel like every protagonist in every single Neil Gaiman story ever, where it's like suddenly a new world has opened up to me. I don't know which one, but presumably one where people who have played and owned Final Fantasy X-2 exists.
It's kind of strange to me. The problem with making it an all-male cast, it's not just a problem inherent in this game, because I could play it and say, oh, they handled this pretty well. The problem is more problem is broader than that, because there's sort of an issue right now in gaming about the lack of female representation in our main characters in gaming. And now they're saying, oh, the next Final Fantasy game, which is one of the biggest franchises and longest lasting franchises in gaming history, it's just all dudes. And it just leaves a sour taste in your mouth, even if they handle it well. It's coming at a kind of a bad time.
Have you seen the female character they revealed for Final Fantasy 15? That she's not in the party, but she's this version Sid. You know how every Final Fantasy has a character named Sid?
Okay, so she's in the game, but you can't play her. What's her deal?
She's appears to be some kind of like gas station attendant or something, and she's like this sexy teenager in like booty shorts.
Oh. Sexy teenager, yeah. Great. Thanks, Japan.
And all of the Sids previously were like old withered dudes. Yeah, it's funny when you told the story about how you were really into Final Fantasy until you got to 10-2 and you're like, this isn't good. I had the same like arc, but I had it a little sooner when I realized one of the main characters in the game's name was Pain. I was like, there might be a problem here. That's not good. That's not a good name for a character. And the character names of Final Fantasy 15 continue that. Wow, they are bad.
Prompto?
Wait.
Prompto.
Okay, I'm reading them now. I just
Prompto.
It's for those who are wondering, it's Noctis, Gladiolus, Ignis, and Prompto. I feel like these are references to something, and I feel dumber for not knowing what.
I'm sorry. I'm just trying to imagine like a mother and father standing next to a doctor with this official-looking certificate in his hand. The doctor like staring at this little scrawled name, like taking one look at the parents and just going, "Are you certain?" And, like, the mother and father look into each other's eyes lovingly and then smile beamingly back at the doctor. Yes. And the doctor says, okay. Prompto it is.
Oh, I did a search. I kept thinking, like, this must be, like, a reference to classical literature or something. And then I did a search for all these names, and no, it's just from Final Fantasy 15. These are original names. I was going to give them a pass. I
like gladiolas because that sounds a lot like gladiolas.
I mean, they all are like
the floral arrangement, gladiolas.
They're all like derived from things. Like Noctis is like night, Ignis is fire, and
gladiolus is a purple flower.
It's also a kind of. I think it's a kind of sword.
They sometimes call it the sword lily.
Okay.
Yeah.
Alright, so they all represent, different aspects of the universe or something like that, and they're all gonna get together and explore this, in a car. Apparently it's like a road trip, and therefore almost certainly very linear.
But is it like the movie Road Trip, starring Tom Green?
Okay, that movie is not starring Tom Green. Tom Green's in it. He's just featured prominently on the box art. He's in like 10 minutes of that movie. It's weird that I remember so much about Road Trip.
Okay,
but I do.
Okay, alright. Then allow me to rephrase that.
Okay.
Is it like Road Trip, starring Breckenmeyer and Sean William Scott?
Yeah, I believe it is. So any other thoughts about this, nonsense?
I want to say earlier someone made a joke about the final boss being Hitler, and I just want to say, because I know someone in the comments is going to say it if I don't, the final boss of Persona 2 was Hitler. So that doesn't necessarily mean your series is out of ideas.
No, but I mean, Persona 2 can kind of get away with that. Like, the Persona series can get away with that because it's just a little bit itself. It's a little bit itself.
What's that mean?
It just means, like, I've never played the Persona games. I haven't, but they are infamous for their art designs, their, like,
Talking bears?
flavor, let's say, you know? Yeah. So I think, like, yeah, I feel as though Persona could get away with that. Final Fantasy always kind of, pretends...
It takes itself more seriously.
It does. It pretends at higher things in a way that Resident Evil likes to pretend at higher things. But what if man was the monster all along?
Comparing something to Resident Evil, especially in a storytelling sense, is like the most dire insult I could think of.
No, it's not in a storytelling sense. It's in a self-esteem sense. Like, Resident Evil takes itself very seriously. To, like, almost to the point where you wonder if it's a joke. Like, you guys know Ricky Gervais? I mean, not like personally, but you're aware of him. So
yeah,
if I said the name Karl Pilkington, would you guys know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, it's from Idiot Abroad.
Yeah. So, like, I am still to this day not convinced that Karl Pilkington is a real man.
Like he's an actor?
I'm almost convinced that this is like the longest form joke that anybody's managed to come up with. Like, I can't understand why that man would allow Ricky Gervais to do and say the things that he's done and said to this man and still keep hanging around. But he does, you know? So I sort of feel like in that sense that Resident Evil takes itself so seriously. It's like the Karl Pilkington of, I'm like, you can't possibly be serious, but you're obviously very serious. I don't know how to react to you. And I feel that Final Fantasy similarly takes itself very seriously. Just a quick look at the ridiculous amounts of lore reading that happened in Final Fantasy 13. Is an indicator of that, where it was like, they were like, no, we need to painstakingly design this entire universe, this caste system, these gods, this government, and make everybody read it, but then put none of it in the game. Like that, it does. It takes itself crucially serious to a fault.
Now I want to see a Final Fantasy game starring Karl Pilkington where he just reacts to all this crazy magic shit going on around him. He's just like, this is bullshit, I'm gonna go home.
Alright, Austin. We're forming a game development studio. And, I think we have some good ideas for our first project.
Take your fal'C and shove it.
I don't want to be here. I want to go home. But you are the chosen one, Pilkington. Chosen to do what? Chosen to go home? I'll do that.
Leon doesn't know what we're talking about.
No, I'm afraid I don't. But that's okay. Anything we want to say about Final Fantasy 15 or Final Fantasy in general before we pretend to move on to something else? Because we have no idea what we're going to talk about for the rest of this show.
I'm excited about the possibilities, the potential of the second half of the show, considering we don't know what we're going to do.
Yeah. Anything else we want to say about this?
Not really. I mean,
Okay.
Final Fantasy, shrug. Open hands in the air, you're looking kind of like confused. What are you gonna do? I get the feeling they're in that confused teenager phase. Even though they're older probably than many of our listeners.
Oh my. So I went to the movies this week, and
Did you see a movie?
I did, in fact.
Did it see you?
Its vision is based on movement, so if you don't move, they can't see you.
If it did see me, then I feel like my show takes on like a new meaning, because now I'm dealing with some sort of sentient Cinderella. But no, I just saw a regular Cinderella, and it was not that good.
Regular or irregular Cinderella?
It was
Because I'm sorry, when I think regular Cinderella, something very specific pops to mind.
Was it Diet Cinderella?
No.
What the
Is it Cinderella Light, now with less sodium?
Oh my god. I don't know what's going on. So anyway,
You didn't go to the theater and see Disney's animated Cinderella.
No, I went to see the new live-action Cinderella.
Why?
Because I love Disney movies, and I wanted to see it. And I wanted to see the Frozen short before it.
What percentage of the live-action Cinderella would you describe, Mr. Thomas, as bippity-boppity-boo?
About 1%. They said the fairy godmother said it twice. She didn't sing while saying it. There was no song. She just kind of pointed at something and said bippity-boppity-boo, and then a mouse turned into something. That was it. That was the reference to the one.
Was the mouse rapping?
Nope, no. Luckily, there were no rapping mice. It was not. Look, this Cinderella movie, I'll give it this. They didn't try to modernize it in such a way that it was like obnoxious, like self-referential kind of stuff that they try to do to modernize these movies. No, it was just Cinderella. That's the thing. It was just a live-action version of Cinderella. It had the same problem as Maleficent, wherein a large portion of the movie is like narration from a distance rather than, trying to get into the head of the characters. It's just someone narrating what's happening while we're looking at it, taking place over many years, and that really takes you out of, like, it feels like there's such a distance between yourself and the story. But it was pretty. It was a pretty movie. Kenneth, I'm saying his name wrong, Branagh.
No, that's his name. Kenneth
okay.
Branagh.
He directed it, and it looked nice. It was just not good. It was fine. I'm actually surprised because I thought, oh, okay, now Disney's gonna get it right. Because I looked at the reviews for it, and they're like really, really good. It's like everyone loves this thing. The Rotten Tomatoes score is like near unanimous. And I watched it, and I'm like, no, you're all wrong. This is just passable. It just, there wasn't much to it. I will say a few good things about it. And one is that I like that this kingdom is integrated. I guess that's the nicest way I can put it. It's a kingdom. It's a multiracial kingdom and in olden times, fairy tale times, and that's neat, I guess. So there's that. I also liked the portrayal of the wicked stepmother. I thought the actress handled that pretty well. Just really vile. The rest was just there. It was very forgettable, and I was really disappointed. The Frozen short before it, Frozen Fever, it had about as much quality to it, but it was packed into 5 minutes, so it felt okay. Whereas Cinderella's quality had like 5 minutes of good stretched out over about 2 hours. So the short was much better by comparison. It was a short with no stakes. The conflict of the short, Frozen Fever, is that Elsa wants to throw Anna a birthday party, but Elsa has a cold. And that is the short. There are no stakes to this thing. It's just a song that's okay.
Sorry, remind me, which one's Elsa?
Elsa is the Snow Queen. She has magic ice powers, and she's played by Idina Menzel. Mm-hmm. Whereas Anna is the younger sister, played by Kristen Bell. And she has no powers to speak of, but she is perky and cute. Right. And that is what she is. The song was not bad, but if that song had been in Frozen proper, people would consider that the song you can skip on the soundtrack. It's that kind of song.
Ooh,
I'm sorry.
The gloves come off.
Shots fired, Frozen Fever. No, it was fine. I laughed a couple times. There's a Hans cameo, wherein, you know what? I don't want to spoil it. So, anyway, so that happened. The Frozen Fever was fine. Cinderella was not. And that's my feeling on it. I do want to talk about theater etiquette, though, because that's really what I want to talk about. My wife and I, we went to a late showing of this at a sort of run-of-the-mill. I shouldn't say it's a rundown theater, but it is. It's not very good. It has cheap shows on Tuesdays, so we go every Tuesday.
Is it locally owned, or is it part of a franchise?
Locally owned, bullcrap-looking place. It's not good.
Is it called the Rio? Is it called the Vogue?
It's called East Point 10. It is mildly... Excuse me.
That's a really unromantic name for a movie theater.
It really is.
Okay.
East Point 10 is not far away from me. It holds the distinction of being the only theater in Baltimore or even the area that would play The Interview. Everyone else just didn't want any part of it, but this place needed the business, so they did. But anyway, there's a problem. We went to a late show, and this was the show that a family with 7 children decided to go to. If you have children 2 years old or less, you have toddlers who can barely talk, it's not appropriate to bring your tiny children to late shows. They are going to be tired about 5 minutes in. They're going to cry, they're going to fuss, and this family sucked. They brought their tiny kids. Their children would run up and down the aisles and act a fool. I tried to take these things in stride. My wife is more strong-willed than myself, so she got up and says, "I've had enough of this," and she walks into the lobby to complain to management because they should do something, but management had fucked off for the night, and nobody would do anything. So we just kind of sat there while this asshole family took out their phones and tried to record the screen, which doesn't work very well on a tiny phone, I think. And they were just assholes. And so basically, I just feel like it's so easy to behave yourself in a movie theater that I shouldn't have to say this, but there's just 2 rules. Sit the fuck down and shut the fuck up. That's all you have to do when you go to the movie theater. People spent millions and millions of dollars to make this thing happen, to put into your eyeballs. So all you owe them in return is to sit there and don't be a dick to the other people who are watching the goddamn movie.
And also $10.
No, not even that. It was the cheap show. It was
okay.
$6.50. They should know better. Sit down, you assholes. God, I fucking hate people. I was planning to go to see Kingsman today. Unfortunately, it didn't happen. I was kind of excited because it's like the last showing, so no one was going to be there. And it was a matinee, so it was just going to be me. Unfortunately, I could not get there. But that is my ideal theater experience. If I'm going to see a new movie, I want no one else to be there at all. I want everyone to just fuck off. If I'm seeing an old movie at a theater, then I want people there because then it feels like an experience. It's like a community thing. But anyway.
When the Phantom Menace first came out in theaters,
yeah,
I got dragged to it by a friend of mine who, for years, has ragged on sci-fi.
Oh.
And was just like, ooh, sci-fi's the worst, like fucking sci-fi, blah, 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 sci-fi. And he's tried to meet me halfway sometimes, but in like the worst way possible. Q calling me up at like 9 o'clock at night and being like, hey, do you want to go see Star Wars The Phantom Menace tonight? I'm trying to reach out to you halfway to see some good sci-fi. And I'm like, no, that's the wrong way to go. But he was like, oh, it was still it's Star Wars, part of my youth, and things like that. When it first came to theaters, it was a movie theater that was doing 24-hour, round-the-clock viewings of The Phantom Menace because they thought it was going to be a little bigger, apparently, than it turned out to be. And it took them a couple of weeks to realize this. This was like a week or two into the run. And we went and saw like a 2 o'clock in the morning screening of The Phantom Menace.
Nice.
And we got into the theater, and it was just the two of us until like right before the movie when one guy walked in and sat at the very back. To this day,
yeah,
I still wonder about that guy. I'm like, Phantom Menace guy, what's your story?
You know what? Here's the thing about Phantom Menace guy. If there was a local theater that actually played 2 a.m., 4 a.m. movies, that's the one I'd want to go to. I would take a nap in the afternoon because otherwise I'd be cranky. And then I would go to the 2 a.m. showing so that nobody else would be there and I could watch a big screen movie without having to deal with people and their popcorn and their stickiness. So I would be Phantom Menace guy.
So you're Phantom Menace guy, Leon? You're Phantom Menace guy?
I wasn't the actual Phantom Menace guy.
Aren't we all Phantom Menace guy deep down?
We are all Phantom Menace guy. Yeah, so I feel like that's the explanation. He wanted to go see this movie without having to deal with a bunch of screaming Star Wars fans or children.
Might have been.
Yeah, I feel like that's the answer. That's the answer to your I guess decade long question about this one person.
I really want to believe that was Leon in the 2 a.m. showing.
Yeah, like we secretly met, like we were two passing in the night.
It's like the plot twist of Final Fantasy VIII where we all grew up in the same orphanage. It really fits into my fanfic.
At the risk of, I feel like every show I talk about my wife for 30 seconds, and that's because that's end up being a big part of my life. I do have one story about my wife that is actually related to that.
The fan fiction I'm writing about us?
No, the Final Fantasy VIII twist where they actually knew each other when they were younger. Okay.
I'm waiting. I mean, come on.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was waiting for
suspense.
I was waiting for an ooh. Without
you don't get the ooh till you actually tell us the story, and it can't be like, I'm not gonna be like, and Bruce Willis was dead the whole time, and then expect you guys to be like, oh my god.
My wife and I, without realizing it, on a few different occasions, years and years before we met, sat next to each other a bunch of different times at wrestling shows, like a few different times, without realizing it. I just didn't acknowledge her because at the time she was underage. So I didn't say, oh, there's a pretty girl. I said, oh, there's a kid. And we did not realize that we had sort of met each other a few different times and had sat near each other a few different times in different states, until after we got engaged, we were talking and it was like, oh, you were at that same show in that row? It's like, yeah, I was. I'm like, oh, let's look at the tape. So yeah, in sort of.
Are you fucking kidding me right now, Leon?
No, I'm not kidding you. Yeah, my wife and I, went to see, Ring of Honor Survival of the Fittest. She's from New Jersey and I'm from Maryland, and but somehow both went to Pennsylvania one, night and sat near each other and to see the show. And apparently it happened a couple other times. But she's 6 years younger than me, so at the time I was like 20-something and she was still a teenager, so although she was a pretty young woman, I did not, look over and say, hey, or anything. So,
excuse me, young lady.
So yeah,
would you maybe want to get married in, I don't know, a decade or so?
Yeah, basically, yeah, my wife and I are the twist from Final Fantasy VIII. So yeah.
Only with wrestling shows.
Only with wrestling shows instead of, like, horrible magic orphanage shit. Yeah, anyway, that's my story. We didn't plan our topics for tonight, so I just threw out the weirdest story that I have.
Well, I mean, we sort of segued into it.
Yeah, yeah.
It was a natural weird story.
Yeah.
There aren't a lot of stories this week, guys. I said this before the show started, but everyone's playing Blood-Borne. That's the big release of the week. I even played it, and I don't even like the Souls games that much.
Not everybody's playing Blood-Borne.
I don't have the PS4 yet, but what are your impressions of it, Austin? Because I'm eventually going to play it.
All the cool kids are playing Blood-Borne, Johnny.
All the cool kids. Okay, I'm not really a kid anymore, so maybe all the cool kids, but...
Oh, so you said you played it. What do you feel about it?
Here are my impressions of Blood-Borne. After watching me play it for an hour or so, my brother made up a character, and he called him Sisyphus. In anticipation of the experience awaiting him.
Classical literature reference. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it's a meticulously crafted game. It's wonderful in a lot of ways, but it is just fucking brutal. I'm still in the first area. I haven't made any discernible progress.
I heard that a lot of people were dying on the character creation screen, and but it actually turned out to be a feature.
You change the eyebrow length too loud.
And that was it. Boom! Game over.
Your fucking head explodes. Yeah, no, it's just... I mean, all the Souls games start with you getting your ass handed to you in kind of like a faked out tutorial thing, where you just, like, get mauled by an early monster. But, like, after that part, when you're supposed to start winning and succeeding, I still haven't got that accomplished. I'm still getting clowned by, like, regular foot soldier guys. It's bad. I don't
So you say it's hampering your enjoyment of the game.
I think that's the way it's meant to be experienced, though. I think that's by design. You just throw yourself in the meat grinder to hope that the sausage that comes out the other end is tasty. I don't know what else to say about those kind of games. I've never really enjoyed them. I just respect the shit out of them because they're like dedicated to what they do. But you know, not for me. I'm gonna keep playing it probably just because I love the art design. It's not like the medieval, like the Dark Souls and Demon Souls. It's kind of like a Victorian England.
That's cool.
Kind of thing. So I like that more. So I'll probably stick with it at least a little longer. But now you can just get killed. You just get shot in the face like 30 seconds into like the first area, and
just
you
like
die.
in real life, man.
Yeah.
Blood-Borne is just like real life.
It sounds like it.
Yeah. I'm
going to the grocery store, like, you know, paying your bills, getting shot in the face by a werewolf. There you go. Yeah, fuck. Dude, that's my regular Tuesday.
I'm actually making a lot of progress with Tales of Grace's F. I played.
My God, they get together. Spoilers. Stop playing. Hey.
I'm at like the last dungeon. They're all be like, today is the day that we do the thing. So I saved it, and I'm gonna do the thing. And by the time I
I'm sorry to interrupt. I'm sorry to interrupt, but in the time it's taken you to beat Tales of Grace's F, they've made 2 new Tales games.
I know that. I understand that.
Realize how long and arduous game development is, like, as a process? It takes hundreds of people years. And they made Zillia 2 and that new one, Zesty something, and the time it's taken you to finish Grace's.
Wait, there's another one? What's Zesty?
Tales of Zest. I don't remember. It has a dragon on it. Give me a second. I'm gonna Google it.
Because I thought I was almost caught up, but apparently I was so wrong. What is it?
Called Zestiria.
Zestiria. Oh, wait a minute. It's, yeah. What the fuck? I thought I was almost done.
They made 2 of them in the time it's taken you to beat this game.
I own Zillia, and I was gonna get Zillia 2, but now I have to play Zestia as well? I don't have to, but I'm going to. What?
It's just called Tales of Zesty. That's much easier to say.
It's it's been released in Japan, but it has yet to be released in the Western world.
So are you going to finish Tales of Grace's F and Tales of Xillia 2 before Zesty?
One.
Here's my schedule. Because I have a schedule.
I envision you waking up in the morning, looking at your calendar, and being like, yes, I need to dedicate 10 minutes to playing Tales of Grace's F today. Let's look at the rest of the year's itinerary.
The rest of the year's itinerary is this. After I finish Tales of Grace's F, which should be within the next few days, I'm going to play God of War Ghosts of Sparta, and then I'm going to trade in some of my games and get Dark Souls, and maybe the Uncharted collection that has like the first 2 games on one disc. Then I own Xillia and Skyward Sword, so I'm going to play them, and then if I like Dark Souls, I'm going to play Dark Souls 2 and Xillia 2, and maybe a few others. Now I have to add Tales of Zet? God damn it. This is... Stop making games so fast. I'm so far behind.
I was in a GameStop the other day, and this is a real story. I'm not making this up for, like, radio. I was in the GameStop looking around, and I had this, like, epiphany. I was like, holy shit, there are hundreds of games in here I want to play. We are living in the golden age. Like, they could stop making games right now, and we would never want for things to play. And that is both awesome and, like, terrifying.
I'm pretty sure that of the games that I own now, I'm probably not going to clear them all before I die.
Yeah. I mean, I don't want to direct several thousand listeners to your Steam account, but it is a thing of just horrifying beauty. It's like a monument. Like, you ever seen, Hannibal when he makes that totem pole out of bodies?
Yeah, and you're sort of like, wow, that took a lot of hard work, and yet at the same time, I'm strangely repelled by it in an impressive way.
Speaking of which, I just finished the 2nd season of Hannibal, and holy shit, that show goes hard.
Fuck yeah, it pops off!
Oh yeah.
They're like, we might not get a 3rd season. Let's just go Game of Thrones on this bitch. Holy crap, it's good though.
Yeah.
And the 3rd season is coming back in June, I believe. So.
Yeah.
Oh, I also watched the 1st season of Kimmy Schmidt, so that's another thing we talked about previously. I thought it was funny. I just think there's a lot of, like, low-hanging fruit jokes, like the sassy gay black friend and what's-her-face from 30 Rock playing the same exact character.
I don't think it revolutionizes anything, but that doesn't mean that it's not well-composed and on point.
Yeah.
It's funny, but I was disappointed a little bit.
Right.
No, come on, John Hamm.
John Hamm.
Karate!
John Hamm, like, suddenly showing up is great. I was just thinking about earlier today that a lot of actors do drama and comedy, and John Hamm might be one of my favorite ones because he's so good at playing the incredibly cool Don Draper, and he will just completely lose all of his shit and play the goofiest characters. And I think he's great at both.
The funny thing is that he's not just great playing cool Don Draper, but he's also great at playing Don Draper is a mess. Like, stressed out Don Draper, fucking, like, desperate Don Draper doesn't know what he's looking for, but then, like, in like, one moment, he's like, no, wait, I'm cool Don Draper today. But yeah, then you see him in, like, that Saturday Night Live Sergio sketch, and you're like, what the fuck? Are those leather pants and suspenders and a mullet?
He has a very convincing gravitas about him. Like, whatever he throws himself into, you're just like, yes.
Oh.
Karate!
We don't have any other topics, but I do have a couple other things I want to talk about. You guys saw Avatar, right?
Yeah.
Which one?
I think you mean James Cameron. I hope, because I have
James
nothing.
Cameron's Avatar, because I have not seen Avatar: The Last Airbender, nor have I seen M. Night Shyamalan presents M. Night Shyamalan's The Last Airbender, an M. Night Shyamalan film.
No, I actually meant the TV show, Leon.
Oh, I'm sorry. Now, well, I was hoping you meant Avatar the movie, so I could join in. But I have nothing to say, so I'm just going to play with my Twitter for the next...
I've seen Avatar The Last Airbender in my Netflix to-be-watched queue.
It's not on American Netflix anymore, which is a shame. I was just going to use it as a segue, though, because I love Avatar. It's my favorite show of all time. But I heard bad things about the follow-up, The Legend of Korra, so I never watched it until recently when I heard it got gay. So I was like, oh, it's gay now? I have to watch The Legend of Korra. So I'm watching the first 2 seasons. It's not gay yet, and I'm really disappointed in it not being gay. So then I heard another thing. This is a real story, Leon. Don't laugh.
No, go ahead. I'm sorry.
I heard another story. Someone's like, hey, have you ever heard of this show called Steven Universe? It's really good. It's a cartoon show. It gets super gay. And I was like, oh shit, now I gotta watch Steven Universe. So I sat down and watched 2 seasons of that, which is as much as I gave Korra, and it's already gay. So Steven Universe is way better than The Legend of Korra, if you were confused about children's cartoon shows and their quality in this day and age.
So it's better because it's gayer?
Yes.
Okay.
Also, it's the people who make Steven Universe are like irredeemable weeaboo monsters. Like they can't stop referencing anime. Like every a fight scene will be taken like directly from Revolutionary Girl Utena, or they'll do the JoJo like punches, the aura thing. They cannot stop. They can't help themselves, and it's adorable. But the show is the best because one of the characters is actually 2 characters, and they're gay for each other. They're gay so hard that they fused into one character.
Neat.
So that's my recommendation.
Okay, that's cool.
if he needs it.
I don't think it's come to Canada yet.
Which thing?
Steven Universe.
Oh man, cartoons are great.
It's because it's a cartoon network, isn't it?
I think so.
Yeah, like the Cartoon Network is despicably un-Canadian. Insofar as that we have like a Canadian network up here called Teletoon.
I love just the name of that.
That tries to it's the only fucking network that will show a lot of these Cartoon Network shows, but then they just kind of like pick and choose. They're like, maybe we'll air season 4 of the Venture Brothers, but we'll do it all in one night. And then you're like, what just happened?
I remember reading an article that Canada relaxed its laws about how much Canadian content needs to be represented.
Yeah, they've changed the law a little bit, which may or may not lead to good things. I mean,
that's cool.
Yeah, CanCon's been a kind of a mixed bag because in a lot of circumstances, it's really the only reason why some shows or movies managed to get made was because it was like, quick, we need something Canadian. You know, and there have been a couple of like really popular Canadian television shows that only exist because of CanCon laws. There was one called Little Mosque on the Prairie.
Oh my God, is that what it sounds like?
It is. It's like, it was about this, basically a Muslim family that moved into this small, rural farming community and was culture clash, and it was actually, it was a reasonably sensitive show, and it was kind of funny. It was an interesting, it was an interesting setup. There's the other famous one that, even made it, I think, to America. Well, there's a couple. What was it? Due South was one, which was about Paul Gross played like a Mountie who gets transferred to the Chicago PD or something like that. And it was so cartoony and weird. Like, he wears his fucking, red uniform all the time, and it's like, okay, no, shut up, whatever. Corner Gas was another that was quite popular. But, yeah, I mean, I know a lot of musicians. I know many musicians that would not have been able to have produced their CDs or albums or EPs or whatever without government grants and CanCon laws. So, I mean, it's all very great and nice for the government to say, oh, we really want to focus on quality of Canadian content rather than quantity. Is like, okay, so you don't want to do it at all? Quality isn't something that you can just pay for in the creative sector. I mean, you can't just be like, here's more money, make it better.
Yeah, I know what you're saying. Because who's to say is what's quality, right? Once it's made, it's already made. You can't take the money back.
Yeah, precisely. And then, like, even then, there's, you run into the danger of, like, people who are making really good stuff drop completely out of your budget, or not drop, but rise completely out of your budget range, and it would just be like, to then decide, well, we really need the one funny guy who made that one amazing show, but he's earning way too much money, so let's take all of this money that we were spending on doing other stuff that was okay, and spend it all on him, and maybe it's a flop. Like new voices, old voices, I feel really mixed about Canadian culture, movies and TV and things like that. Like we have some really, really, really great television. We do, particularly with like HBO Canada now, which picked up like Ken Finkelman's work. Ken Finkelman is just like he's a fucking genius, and it's hilarious because if you look him up on IMDb, you'll see that one of his very first credits was as a writer for Airplane 2. But he's made some just, like, fucking phenomenal shows. Like, he made a 1990s comedy called The Newsroom, different than Aaron Sorkin's TV show called The Newsroom, that was just, like, mind-blowingly funny and satirical about news culture.
Also, you guys gave us Rush, which is nice.
Thanks.
I'll let the guys know.
Next time there's a big Canada meeting.
Yeah.
We're
getting together next Wednesday.
All right. We should talk about more gay stuff with our show. We should. Apparently in Indiana, there's a bill that's almost certainly going to go through that is going to make it possible.
Yeah, the Religious Freedom Bill.
Yes, it's going to make it difficult for if someone discriminates you because you're a gay person and they say, well, it's my religion and I can, then it's going to be very, very difficult for that person or that business to be sued because there's now a protection against that.
I would just go to a bank and start flipping tables over and be like, it's my religion. Jesus did it. It's okay.
Okay. So Governor Mike Pence, who signed it into law, he can suck my dick. I mean, he won't because he's evangelical Christian, so he won't suck my dick. But he can.
Oh man, they give the best head. Come on.
Evangelical Christians give the best head. I really wish I could make that the title.
It doesn't need to be the title. It's the truth.
All right, guys, I gotta go. We're in an hour in, so I have to go.
Yeah.
Is there anything you guys want to say before we go?
Yeah, I'd like to point out, everybody, that released on the morning that we recorded this, I made another video game. You can pick up Pillars of Eternity and actually play as, well, not really play as me. You can, like, make your own character, and it's you, but you can be visually represented by a portrait of me.
Wait, so you're not killable in this game?
I am killable, but if I die, you lose! Good day, sir!
This defeats the entire purpose of playing a game where Johnny's in it. All I want to do is murder you.
I win this time, Austin. I win.
I just want to say before we go on the Indiana thing, isn't it funny how in American politics you can name a bill anything? Like, I just want to make a bill where we all have to just, like, kill all the dogs and call it that, like, I love Jesus bill, and then it'll get passed. Because no one reads the damn things, apparently. Fuck.
I'm going to amend the I love Jesus bill, before it moves to Congress, where in addition to killing all the dogs, we all have to eat meals only made of warm marshmallows. Marshmallows that have been warmed by people putting them in their back pockets and sitting on them for 7 hours. I love Jesus Bill. Vote yes.
I think that's the next season. That's the plot of the next season of House of Cards.